there are so many, I don't want to say horror stories, but there have been lots of selections over the years where corporate leaders and middle-level managers have seen what a train wreck it can be if you don't pick the right talent and it's misaligned for whatever reason. And getting it right's a lot easier than trying to mop up afterwards.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. You know, it's always so much fun to address a new, unexpected angle on producing No More Bad Events. Recently, we talked about infusing humor and the lightness of being into an event. We also talked about adding scripted theatrical moments, maybe in the form of a play that could take the event over the top. Today, yet another perspective is offered, and it comes from my good friend and great colleague, Rich Gibbons. Rich is president of SpeakInc, one of the top speakers bureaus in the country. Rich addresses, and this is big, how a speaker could make or break an event, and how, as a broker of speakers, he needs to understand every nuance of a client's request. He gets how critical it is to match a speaker to the event objectives and audience expectations. If he misses one iota of that wish list, he can suffer the loss of the client, not to mention suffer the pain of the client when the speaker falls flat. In our conversation, Rich gets specific about the need to deeply understand the ethos, profile, demographic, and DNA of a conference or program slot. Bottom line, selecting the right speaker is an art form. It requires an understanding of your audience's preferences, the ability to read the room, and a commitment to providing an unforgettable experience. So get ready to hear about that and the evolving role of speakers bureaus to help you pick out that perfect speaker. Let's get to it with someone I like to refer to as the speaker agent guru, Rich Gibbons. So you are, Rich Gibbons, the president, and I don't know, do you guys have a partner system? Are you president and partner of SpeakInc? How do you guys label each other?
Yeah, so there are probably 5 key stakeholders that have sort of a stake in the action. But as you well know, I'm sort of operational leadership. On Monday, I'm chasing after president stuff, but I also have a book of business, many of the corporate customers that you and I have worked on together. So, half the time I'm wearing the agent hat, and then, the other time I'm chasing after, keeping the trains running on time around here.
So let's talk about when you're wearing the agent hat, because that's how I know you mostly. And I want to get a better idea. The name of the podcast is No More Bad Events, and a speaker agent has a big part of that. Folks are responsible for bringing in the keynotes that will have a big impact at these events. You have a lot of clients. Some people don't know how the speaker bureaus work, but you have a book of clients. So let's talk a little bit about your process in presenting a list of speakers to a client. So let's go with a real life example. Maybe you can use one of the last couple of speakers you booked. What was your client looking for? What did you present? And then what was the process of working with them going, these are the ones you definitely want to look at?
Yeah, great question. Well, you're kind of getting into the magic of the agent and bureau tradecraft because, you're pretty immersed in the talent landscape, and you know that it is a galaxy of talent out there in terms of the speakers and the thought leaders and subject matter experts and book authors. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of them. And I have some customers that are extremely cynical, and they kind of, whether it's, testimonials or some of these demo videos where they're they slice and dice these, 5, 6, 7 second snippets, and then they kind of daisy chain them all together. And I have some customers who very unapologetically say, you can get average talent to look pretty good on a website or, on a demo video because of the magic of editing, right? So I think it has, and there are so many, I don't want to say horror stories, but there have been lots of selections over the years where corporate leaders and middle-level managers have seen what a train wreck it can be if you don't pick the right talent and it's misaligned for whatever reason. And getting it right's a lot easier than trying to mop up afterwards. So you asked a lot of questions there, but I think part of the tradecraft and kind of the magic of what we do on this side of the fence is, do you know the name Tony Alessandra?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so Tony is sort of an elder statesman. He'd be horrified if he knew I called him an elder statesman, but I think he did start in the late 80s. So he's got a few miles under the tires. But what he uttered a line when I first got in the industry that I just adored, and it stuck with me literally for 30 plus years. And that is, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. That if you don't know sort of the ethos of the event, sort of the profile of the company, the demographic of the audience, there's so many different aspects of the DNA of a conference and a program slot. And you've immersed yourself in scores and scores of them where there's a certain vibe. And I think that's where really talented people like yourself, they've got a good nose for reading the room and understanding and doing a lot of that preparatory work on the front end to get the read of the audience. That makes sense?
It totally makes sense. So a client's going to have some objectives. They're going to be, this is what we want to try to accomplish. So once you get that message, where do you go from there? Do you present a dozen speakers? Do you give them different types? Well, if you want to go more inspirational, you want to go this way. What is the relationship between you and the buyer? What's that like?
That's another great question. And another pal of mine in the business, Neil Pasricha, has another great quote. And that is, in a time of infinite choice, the power of curation skyrockets. So the first question you ask, do you send a dozen names? Like, no, by and large, the event stakeholder, the buyer, is really looking to us to make those recommendations, not on a list of 12 or 15 people, because that's tantamount to saying to the buyer, well, you pick it.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah.
Because at some level, they're looking for you. You are the authority. They're looking for your expertise.
Of course. And it's self-serving for, whether it be me or any of my business partners or industry colleagues, across the lecture circuit. It's self-serving for us to recommend people that we know, we don't think, we know they're going to kill it on game day. Why? Well, because past is prologue. If the last 3, 4, 5 dozen times we've sent them out, it's been a Grand Slam homer, then odds are on the 57th time we send them out for your event, they're probably going to do a great job. So there are also subtleties, and you've seen this with lots of different, I have a healthcare trade association customer who has a certain subset of the audience that is, and it's probably less than 5%, but it's hyper conservative. And if there's even the word damn, it results in a lot of complaints coming to executive leadership. So understanding that the likes of Gary V is probably not a good pick, because when you tell Gary not to drop so many F-bombs, he gets defiant and says, I'll double the rate of my F-bomb output.
Right.
So you really have to know, and that's kind of a radical example, but you have to know sort of the background and wiring of the talent to make sure that they're aligned with, and to flip that coin. I have one of my colleagues has in the food sector, it's a meat packing customer. And these guys they like blue humor. And they request blue humor, which is an incredibly radical minority of customers. But it's just, bottom line, it comes down to understanding. We have some customers that are in high tech, and the audiences, by and large, have sort of engineering minds. So don't give me your theory. Tell me about these concepts and these ideas that can be additive to my practice and my worldview, but tell me how they're supported by data and research, right? So that is, as opposed to maybe, a sales group, which is about energy and charisma and platform presence. All these audiences, they tumble to different styles.
So what you're talking about is sort of aligning the events, not just the theme, but the audience's energy, what they're all about. So that's got to be through either asking lots of questions if it's a new client or if it's a returning client. You've got a sense of what they're looking for. What's the best way to align the event with the perfect speaker? Is it just about, because you're getting speakers for them year after year. So even though you got their vibe, what they're wanting this year is going to change. So is it about asking the right questions? What does the input sessions look like with these?
There's a couple, and obviously there are kind of predictable topics, whether it's, innovation or leadership or teamwork. I mean, there are the old standbys.
And does it start with that?
Absolutely. It has to start with, we want a voice who is authoritative and well-informed on topic X. The pet topic now, we can't go more than 5 minutes without having a buyer ask about artificial intelligence. How is AI going to impact our industry, our business? How might our competitors leverage that tool to outgun us? But going back a step to your question of a minute ago, to some extent, you can get a sense of the track record. Like hey, buyer, when you look over the last, say, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, what names kind of leap out at you as, wow, that speaker really aced it? And people, here it is 7, 8 years later, they're still talking about it. They're still pulling up through lines and quotes from that presentation. And maybe who missed the mark. That informs a great deal around the kind of names that you select in advance as candidate suggestions. But above all else, and we try, my partners and I try to do it as much as we possibly can. And you and I have spent time together on site. But to sit in that audience, and I don't mean to sound flip, but to sit in that audience and see how they react and look left and look right and see, are people on their smartphones or are they leaning in and paying attention? I mean, I feel like the smartphone is a little bit of a litmus test. It's
So that's why it's so important for you to be there on site, not only just to do some of the talent wrangling, but also they probably, look to you from time to time, while you're there and, either asking, questions, but you're there to see how things are going and to say to them, hey, this is how you might want to do it next time. And it probably gives you some great information on what speaker you want to bring in next time or who you want to bring for this particular client.
It does. And of course, it would be wonderful if we could just kind of like, I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden ourselves to every, spot on the map. We can't be at every event, but we do like to, and again, the point I was going to make 10 minutes ago about being self-serving, we want to recommend talent. We want to govern and marshal the program and add value at every turn, because that means that customer will work with us next year. We would far rather be working with the same, become a real immersed, embedded resource and sort of part of the event team, as opposed to a more of a transactional approach. We want to be working with that customer, not for 2 or 3 months, but I have some customers that go back 20, 25 years. And it's kind of funny, but sometimes I know more about the speaker history and the conference and the formatting than the executive director or the director of corporate communications, because this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th person that I've worked with at that event.
Right.
So we're very, very lucky when we're able to achieve that level of, heck, any of my industry colleagues across the Bureau archipelago, we're lucky when we have that level of loyalty and consistency. And yeah, that's something that we always strive for. And you win that and you earn that by making really quality recommendations that are going to deliver on game day.
Yeah, I was talking to Tim Matthey, at
I've heard of
yeah,
them.
you heard of him, one of your other partners at Influence in Orlando for the National Speakers Association. And I was asking him, I said, do you have a list of go-tos that you like to recommend in different subject matter, different topics? Is that something you do as well? Is there because, you want to please the client, you want the audience to be excited. Do you have that list of go-to speakers that you'd like to recommend time and time again?
Well, of course. I mean, there are those, somebody like yourself who has done great work for us in the past, and somebody says, hey, we want an event host. We want them to be, smart, upbeat, energetic, funny. Like, yeah, Bloom would kill for this. But sometimes they say, we want all of that, and we need racial diversity. We need gender diversity. And last time I checked, you're neither of those things.
Nope. I have not been pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
My whole life. But somehow I'm still working. That's the incredible thing.
Exactly. Well, it's a testament to your talent. Yeah. But the answer to your question, do we have go-to people? Of course. I mean, there are people that we just love to recommend because they are, customer focused. They love their craft. They are so charismatic. They have so much audience connection. Yeah, we love that. And we are sometimes told, we need, we've got this budget, we need this topic, this is our theme. They outline the whole thing. And then they punctuate it with, and we've gotten feedback that we've used too many people in the military. Oh, well, the person I was going to suggest is a Blue Angel pilot. Would be perfect for this. But they just said, we can't do military. And this guy's, U.S. Navy. So right. Whether it's some DEI component, we need to have, and that's one of the joys of working as a non-exclusive bureau. We don't have 17 names in the back room we got to get gigs for. We can color with the entire crayon box. And there are, as you well know, there are thousands of crayons out there.
Is it up to 100,000? It seems like everyone's a speaker these days.
It does seem like that. Of course, not all of them are pressure tested.
Not all of them are working, yes. But everyone seems to be calling himself a Keynote these days.
But by the time you do that Venn diagram of, hey, we need somebody on artificial intelligence and they need to be a book author because we do a room drop with a book, and we need them to have some kind of academician pedigree. They need to be a professor somewhere, and we need diversity, and it's got to be under $20,000. And by the time they're done, that Venn diagram is pretty freaking small. So at that point, my go-to list out the window. By the time 7, 8, 9 different factors, man, I'm working really, really hard. I'm socializing behind the scenes, different ideas. I'm mobilizing resources with my partners and my industry colleagues to try to find somebody that I feel really strongly about that meets all of these criteria. So at that point, the quote unquote go-to list is out the window.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher, but that's your job. That's why they're going to you folks.
Exactly. And if you don't mind, I want to interject and serve up my intrepid partner of 25 plus years, Tim Matthey. He said something of our business that I thought was very sort of illuminating and insightful, that every day we as lecture agents are learning something new. We have to expose ourselves to authorship, to subject matter expertise in a certain vertical and focus. And because we need to know it and be fluent in it and really show mastery in it, we end up having, and I think Tim's line was, it kind of feels like going to university every day. You have to be fluent. You need to have mastery in these arenas. And that's kind of what makes the industry, I almost don't think of it as a job. It's almost like, Tim calls it his hobby, and it's almost like a pastime more than a vocation, because you just end up learning people, having these incredible experiences, going to amazing events, but understanding and really knowing what makes the talent unique. And that's why we love having the talent come in here and just
meet everyone. Yeah.
Shoot the breeze over sandwiches. Like, you really get to know, how is this person wired? How did they come to their craft? How did they get into the business? Really sort of understand the backstory and what motivates them, and how they got into the business. It's fun. It's an incredibly interesting subject to study.
Yeah, I mean, you've been in the industry now for decades. How do you see the role of speaker bureaus changing in this next decade? I mean, you mentioned one thing, the fact that now it's a little bit more specific in the type of speaker they want, whether it's diversity, whether it's, gender diversity, racial diversity. There's always constantly new subject matters. As you said, artificial intelligence is big. And you're seeing different changes in your own work, but you're also part of an organization, the IASB, International Association of Speaker Bureaus. What other new trends are you seeing in terms of speakers? You mentioned artificial intelligence, but what have you learned recently from your colleagues? I mean, that's what's great about getting together. It's, just like in any other association, you get to hear not only just best practices, but some trends that are happening or directions the industry is going. What are the biggest changes right now or the biggest trends right now?
Well, I would say that, membership in IASB has been, I don't want to sound too dramatic and say transformative, but the ability for my colleagues in the industry to, we have small circles where we will be dealing with just trying to untie, Gordian knot of the quarter. And you're sitting there absolutely mystified on what to do next. How can we sort of solve for this and come up with creative solutions? And of course, we bandy these things around internally, but to have industry colleagues at companies we partner with and, people that we're friends with, that collegiality is enormously valuable. And IASB is such a big part of that and really serves as the kind of a pivotal nexus for just the professional standards and connections between not only companies, but individual professionals in the industry.
So what would you say are some of the misconceptions about speaker agents and their role in event planning from the, the buyer's point of view? What are they getting wrong, or how do they maybe view you, but you don't feel like it's an actual or an accurate perception of what you do?
I had a customer about 3-4 months ago, and I will protect their anonymity as well as the anonymity of the speaker. But I had sort of a 6-figure luminary athlete that, frankly, we were co-brokering. They had said, we want a big name recognition athlete with this kind of profile and to speak about this topic. And I sort of gave them a short list of 3-4 people that I knew were doing a good job and had a good reputation. And they selected one of them. And of course, when you buy that kind of talent, you're co-brokering with another manager, another bureau, another exclusive agency, because that's how the industry works. And when we go into that dialogue and that relationship, to a great extent, we are looking at the speaker management side of the fence as an industry colleague, but one to whom we need to advocate the best interests of our customer being that corporate event owner. So every now and again, when the celebrity who's very busy and very oftentimes is maybe just spread a little thin and getting pulled in a lot of different directions, whether that's a conference call, a meet and greet, or a VIP reception, they don't often want to do that. So the story I was going to tell you from 3-4 months ago, the manager with whom I was working said, well, I know you, this is literally what she wrote to me. She said, I know you care more about the speaker schedule than my senior VP's schedule, but we need to find a time that's going to peacefully mutually.
Was she being passive aggressive in that comment, or she was being genuine?
I really don't think she was. I think she was just saying, look, I know. She never came out and said, I know you work for the speaker and you're advocating for the speaker and you're on the speaker's side. She never said all that, but that was the subtext. And I had to correct her and I say, look, same team, I'm on your side. I want to advocate for what you want and need, because I know you have executive stakeholders and executive leadership for whom you need to provide that. They're your internal client, right? So you're my client and we're serving that senior VP or the director of whatever. And I am advocating on your behalf with the speaker. Please don't misconstrue. So your original question was,
no, that's great.
What are the misconceptions?
There's one.
I think by and large, a lot of these a lot of these managers are very quick to say, no, they won't do that. No, they can't provide signed books or whatever it may be. And that's, for the most part, that's their job to protect the talent. But we sit in that DMZ where we're trying to be a broker of fairness and advocate on behalf of the event owner. So when I saw her write that, I thought, oh, she thinks I'm throwing sharp elbows on behalf of the celebrity speaker, which it's actually the exact opposite. We're trying to diplomatically advocate for the event owner, the ones that are writing the check for that high price talent. We can't always wave a magic wand and get every single thing we want, but that's really our role and our job. So that's an incredibly long-winded answer to your question about, what are the misconceptions? But I would say that's probably top of the hit list.
I think that's very important to hear, that you are advocates for the event owner first. I mean, You're helping them. They're your client. Well, let me ask you about these high-profile celebrity six-figure speakers. Great for the bureaus a lot of times, it's a commission business. But are there ever times where you say the money can be spent a little bit differently, or do you give them other options? And I guess the two-part question is, do you get a sense of always why they want a celebrity there? Is that a whole different view on what that keynote speaker will bring to the event, as opposed to just a speaker who's going to do a great job and the audience is going to love? It's two different things. You can get both with a celebrity, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah, no, that's true. So there's a couple different questions baked into that inquiry. First off, the two reasons why an event owner, event professional would be looking for some kind of name recognition, celebrity sizzle, some kind of field of gravity around that personality is to draw attendees in. So you got a customer conference, you got a trade association event. We need registrants. We need people coming to the event. And if they see a marquee name and they're sort of hedging, like, do I really want to go to New Orleans?
But Magic Johnson's going to be there. I always wanted to see Magic Johnson.
It's probably not the sole reason why anybody goes anywhere, but if it can add a little bit of street cred and magnetism and color to an agenda, we've had event owners, especially in the trade association side, say, you know what? I don't even care what they talk about. I just need to be able to put a name and a photograph in my registration material to spike registrations, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. That's probably and that's a little cynical, but that's probably a good reason. The other reason is, and this is probably more on the corporate side, is that sometimes, frankly, there is an executive leader. I had a high-tech company that hired, I was told they had a certain budget, and I was shopping for ideas in that price neighborhood and zip code. And they came back and said, hey, can you check out, and I'll keep this anonymous, but hey, can you check out this TV personality? I said, well, yeah, I can, but they're more than triple the budget that you described. And they say, our CEO wants them. And money just, I don't know if they have it in the couch cushions or where it comes from, but they magically came up with the money because the CEO was a huge fan. The CEO wanted the FaceTime with the talent. So sometimes it really comes down to executive leaders' fanboy, fangirl motivation.
So I want to close this with you maybe, I don't want to say pitching, but can you list a few speakers if you feel comfortable? So maybe new speakers that, maybe aren't names that people have been thinking of. I'll give you a second to think, and I'll even let you pause for some and we'll cut it out. But is there any speakers right now you're hot on that you just saw, that you just love? They're just killing it out there. The clients are loving it. Just if you were going to make any suggestions or recommendations to anyone who's listening.
Jeez, that is, it sounds like we're going to be able to do some slice and dice editing here.
Just some quick names, just top of your head. Who do you like? Who are some people that make SpeakInc look great time and time again?
Couple of names that jump to mind. We've been doing some work with creativity expert and what's her byline? Creativity whisperer to the C-suite, Natalie Nixon.
Okay.
who has been doing great work for us and is a fantastic person. Another name that we have gotten to know really well, he's paid our office a visit and hold his perspective and work in high regard, is founder and inventor of Shazam, Chris Barton, speaks on innovation, business creativity. Who else?
How about celebrity? A recent celebrity speaker that you thought, you know who I saw recently? And I had seen him a few years ago and he's gotten so much better. Talk about price tags. It's like, do you want this speaker or do you want to buy a nice house in a really nice neighborhood?
Exactly.
Tom Brady. And what I love, I think the best way to present a lot of these celebrity speakers was like in an interview format. And I've been able to do that with some celebrities, is they're not necessarily, speakers. They might have a lot of good things to say, but Brady he had some great stories. He was well prepared. He knew about the company. And that was the first time in a while that I've seen a celebrity at his level really connect with the audience. They really appreciated that customization, knowing a little bit about the CEO, knowing a little bit about the company. And he's Tom Brady. And his story about, constantly not being picked. He wasn't the top guy all along. So he has a great underdog story as well. Any other of those celebrity speakers that come to mind that you really enjoyed listening to?
Tim had great experience with, and I agree with you that as a practical matter, a lot of these six-figure celebrities just straight up don't do stand-up keynotes. As you well know, driving the bus by yourself on the platform is a completely different deal than having a fireside chat moderated conversation in club chairs on the platform. So, and frankly, somebody like yourself, a moderator, a host that is going to conduct that conversation, that interview, can be pivotal to the direction, the tone, the levity, making them feel comfortable. But Tim recently had a great experience with Tom Hanks.
Yes, I've seen he's been speaking a lot. Friends of mine have booked him. He's doing a lot more speaking engagements. Someone I recently just mentioned they saw Tom Hanks and he was amazing.
Yeah. Another name that is just like 50,000 watt energy is who sort of falls into the author, podcaster, celebrity realm is Mel Robbins. A ton of energy and is just super fun. And that's probably another name that you probably don't want to put her in front of a bunch of nuns because it can be, she's provocative and
she's very honest. And I've worked with her a couple of times, and the way she connects to an audience, because to what level her presentation is prepared. It's definitely not a script. She knows where she's going and she's got that gift of gab. And it really, really has an impact when you see someone there just talking to you and being very enthusiastic.
She's an incredibly smart, astute professional. And I think you're right. I mean, she's got a nose for when you can kind of let it all hang out and when you need to button it up.
So this has been great catching up with you, Rich, and I'm hoping that people who are listening understand the value that a speaker agent has in the process. You folks are the ones that are going to guide them, that are going to get the best possible speaker. You have all the experience and the history of not only just working with speakers, but going to these events. So you're a pivotal part, because a good or bad keynote speaker, and depending on where they are in the program, could make or break a program. I know a good one could really totally uplift, the whole environment, the whole experience for everyone, can get them energized and more engaged in the program. So on behalf of everyone who all the event owners who do use you, thank you for your service. I thank you for what you do. And also thank you for being a really just great guy. I really enjoy whenever we get a chance to hang out together.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and thank you for that generous assessment. And I appreciate your insightful questions because they sort of evoke the inner dealings of the tradecraft, and you're good at asking questions. You should be like a professional moderator or something.
Should be a moderator, maybe a podcast host one day. When I grow up, that's what I think I'll do. Anyway, Rich, thanks so much. And maybe I'll come down and see you guys and we'll do a little lunch together with the office.
We would love that. Thank you. Thank you.
That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.